This is Just Common Sense, embracing common sense conservative principles with Dr. Johnny Hunter.
That's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river.
Well, greetings and salutations, and giving honor to Almighty God, we want to welcome you to today's broadcast as we prepare to head into a season of war. You have to know what the times and the seasons. This particular lesson we're going to be talking about today, and this is a lesson more than any episode. We're going to talk about our headlines and things, but we need you to be wise, be courageous, and work. Be wise, be courageous, and work. And when I talk about be wise, I'm talking about politically. When I was a little boy, I noticed that the community really did notice something right away. They did notice something right away, that politicians had a way of showing up during election time. All of a sudden, they showed up to church. And no matter how they acted another time, they had started acting like they were going to be nice this time, the next time around. You're going to be politically, you're going to have to be wise. And that word wise is taken from common sense, which this program is called Just Common Sense from Proverbs 2:7.
He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He's a shield to those who walk with integrity.
Now, I say that on that thing, be wise, because I'm looking at places like New York where they actually got a socialist that is going to run for mayor. And I'm going to tell the people in New York, if you're crazy enough to elect a socialist as your mayor, you're asking for problems. People let you know what they are like. And even out here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and other places, local places, everybody got some people running for mayor that's trying to act a little bit different than what they really were before. You know, if somebody said they didn't like the police and now all of a sudden they're running for mayor, you better watch out. Because there's two groups of people that really don't like the police: street gangs and organized crime. Right. Neither one of them can stand the police. I'm being honest with you. And a person may say, we need to watch out police brutality because they kill many blacks. No, nobody kill more blacks than blacks. And that's a reality. And if you really want your streets to be safe, and if you want to be able to walk on your street in the morning, evening, and night, then you better watch who you put in there as the mayor, because they've already shown their true size. I'll tell any young girl out there that's in high school, if she get a boyfriend and that boyfriend slap you one time, you quit him.
That's the truth.
Is that right, Pat?
That's the truth.
I mean, that's right. And then we have Tahir in the house with us today.
Yes, we do.
And Tahir will tell you the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know, you just don't accept abuse. So if somebody slap you one time, they've already told you what they're like.
Right.
So anybody that already told you to the face that the police department need shut down, they need to defund the police and all this kind of mess, they've slapped you in the face.
Yes.
Now, I will tell anybody, the Bible is kind the way it says things. Don't be foolish. Mm-hmm. I'm not so kind. I say don't be stupid. Watch out for what you're doing. You want to be wise when it comes to your voting coming up. But you also want to be courageous, and that's spiritually. That means spiritually, you have to be in a position where you're willing to lay down your life, lay down your reputation for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. Blood that Jesus shed on Calvary's cross washed away all our sins, all our transgressions. He took the penalty for us. That's courageous. It's time for us to be willing to die for the gospel. Because if you really believe it, we don't die. We may fall asleep, but we don't die. Mm-hmm. Things will change. So you're going to have to be courageous spiritually, and especially when it comes to reputation. And work, and that's the main thing I want to operate on. You. By the way, we're going to do the session today. I know folks are going to think about Johnny Hunter don't mean work because he's talking about everything else but work, but we'll get there. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason. I'm glad you are listening. We are glad you are listening. And we love you and we pray for you. For those who say pray for the president, now it's time to pray for the president. It was on this program that Troy Williams, I said it last, we're going to remind everybody again. He reminded us, pray for our enemies. And when you follow Jesus, you will understand that everybody in the enemy camp is not your enemy. Some of those folks who were in the enemy camp have been taken captive, and they're not even aware of it.
That's right.
The problem for Harriet Tubman was something that later on Malcolm X understood, and he explained that not all slaves knew how bad slavery was. There was a difference in the mindset of a field slave and a house slave. Don't say that much more politely than Malcolm said it.
Yes.
Person who worked in the field knew what the blood, sweat, and slavery was real all about. They were beaten, they were whipped, they were everything. Now, the person in the house, they might have been whipped, but not necessarily. In fact, the head house slave was one of the worst people you could deal with because he had it going on. If master wasn't feeling good, he wasn't feeling good. If master needs something, he needs something. If some slave acted up, he'd let the master know. He was living so comfortably that he was the most dangerous person on that slave plantation. What is so sad is the slaves who, like a guy named April, who actually ended up becoming a slave on himself after he was freed as a slave, became one of the biggest slave owners in South Carolina. But you have to understand what kind of slave he was. If you belong to any group and that charter is opposite biblical principles, you are a house slave. I would say that I don't care whether it's a political group, whether it's a sorority, fraternity, you name the organization, whatever group it is, if they have a chapter and their charter and things are going against biblical principles, you are a slave.
Yes.
Now, you might be living good, so you're a house slave. But my advice to you, you need to break free of that group. Now, Pat and I had the honor and privilege of meeting many Catholic priests who were totally committed to serving God unto death.
Yes.
And the first group we met, they were called Josephites. And the Roman Catholic Society of Apostolic Life of Priests, that's how they call themselves, the Josephites. Now, for folks like me, I was ordained in the Apostolic Church. And one of the things when we do say the Apostle Creed, we talk about the Holy Catholic Church, the Holy and Apostolic Catholic Church. And that Catholic is not Catholic like Roman Catholic. That means kind of like more universal. Apostolic means like the teaching of the apostles. Mm-hmm. This group was very apostolic, which says a lot for them to call themselves be Catholics. But the Society of the St. Joseph for the Sacred Heart were also known as Josephites, a society of apostolic life for the right of men, headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland. Their members work pacifically among African Americans and take the postnominal SSJ. That postnominal, you know what that is, right, Pat? That's just your initial right after your name. Yeah. Just as your initials. Like when I want to be official, I'm Dr. John Hunter, with DD followed, Doctor of Divinity. That's an honorary Doctor of Divinity. The SSJ, they were Society of St. Joseph. So if you saw a priest had an SSJ behind you, were dealing with a radical. Mm-hmm. These were some of the folks that we found out in later times when Harriet Tubman was doing the working and stuff. These were some of the priests and stuff behind some of the stuff going on there, along with the Quakers. They don't talk about it, don't brag about it, they just do it. Now, they were officially formed in 1893 by a group of Mill Hill priests working with the newly freed black people emancipated during the American Civil War. I was Afro-American, during the American Civil War. Mm-hmm. And one of those first ones we met was Arthur Colbert. Yes. Was a pro-life priest in a wheelchair. He was committed to ending abortion.
Yes, he was.
I mean, he was.
It tickled me because when we first met him, he had such a love for people and love for God's children. And it just broke his heart to see that in our society that we were killing off so many children, especially in the African American community. He was just so heartbroken by that. And he just would just pour out his heart and says, why are they doing this to us? And it was so funny because I was like, I didn't know he was African American because he was a Caucasian priest.
Yeah, it was a white priest.
Right? But it was just, why are they doing that to us? He just had such a compassionate heart.
Yep. I remember Kurfellow said, she said, Mike, that man might white. He think he's black.
Yes.
The way he was talking, but he was
Yes.
but he was a Josephite priest.
Yes. Yes. He just
And the Josephite priest, and I remember, boy, when we had pro-life events, he was there. He was out there behind 100s, and he was in a wheelchair getting around
Yes.
more. And boy, when the stepping on, he was right behind me 100% and opening doors and things. And I actually had a chance to sit down and talk with him. And then I said to him, I said, Brother Colbert, I said, let's be honest. I said, your priesthood was founded to free blacks for slavery. And he shared me slavery is he said the horror of slavery, the blood, the sweat. He said it was an abomination. I said, well, the Josephites were so upset with slavery. How come now y'all are really with abortion? And he said to me, Brother Hunter, he said, for people like me, abortion is worse than slavery. Mm-hmm. He said, at least the slaves got the chance to smell the flowers.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. And that's how he felt. Mm-hmm. At least a slave could smell the flowers. And babies don't even have that opportunity. And so we saw a commitment that was so strong there. Mm-hmm. And another priest was Paul Marks with the Human Life International. And he had a tall priest brother. Do you remember his tall priest brother? Oh, they're going to be upset when they hear this show and realize I forgot my other brother's name.
Oh, I forgot his name too. Right now, I can't.
Yeah. It'll pop to us right after the show.
Yes.
Now, these priests, we had to bring Brian Cloves on one day and let him, he'll tell us about it. But these priests stood with me to fight the injustice of abortion when those in the Protestant denominations would not. I'm being honest with you.
Yes.
There were Catholic priests who stood with me and fought when there was churches that was doing their best to avoid me at times. Mm-hmm. And yet now, not everybody in the Protestant church was bad because it was the Southern Christian Leadership Conference that helped out and stood out. It was National Juneteenth Observance Foundation that stood with us. The National Christian Leadership Council did. But the biggest one were the Josephites and certain Catholic leaders like the late Cardinal John O'Connors in New York. They stood with us the whole time. In fact, Paul Marks had such a heart, even for the black community, they reached out to Africa. And they sponsored my first trip to Africa. Yeah. Very first time. I spent time with him, got to know him very well. That older priest sitting down there, and he shared with me, I was not the first person they really wanted to take to Africa, to reach Africa for the pro-life movement. I was the number 2 pick.
Yeah.
The number 1 person was Mildred Jefferson.
Yes, Dr. Mildred Jefferson.
Dr. Mildred Jefferson.
Yes.
She's a medical doctor.
Yes.
She has an MD behind her name.
Yes.
That's her first name. And the most beautiful thing about it is the reason why the Catholic Church wasn't fighting abortion to try to raise more Catholics in Africa. They wanted to save babies. Mm-hmm. That was it. Mm-hmm. And he shared with me, he said, the reason I've asked you to come, because we are Catholic and we can't reach that community because they don't trust us for the reason we're going to be there. They think we're there just to be Catholics. I need somebody there who loves children and loves babies. We want you to come. Mm-hmm. He says, now, we already have you several speaking engagements, but you might as well be prepared. Once you hit that soil, you can probably be busy every day. He said, but more than that, to Pastor Hunter, he said, the days are going to come. You'll be back to Africa on your own. Mm-hmm. We're just setting this up. This is God's doing. And sure enough, when my plane landed, they did not have no speaking engagement for it, but when my plane landed, somebody found out I was there, and 30 minutes later, I found myself at a church preaching for pro-life stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember why those weeks we were there, they'd have 3-day safari we were supposed to have. No, those 3 days for me turned into a revival at some church and other places.
Yes.
I was all over Africa. They were sending me places left and right. I had to preach 4 and 5 times a day. I was thrilled. I was having a wonderful time. But it was a Catholic church that put us in there the first time. Mm-hmm. That's one of the first times we learned. We have to tell you about some of the things I learned when I was there, especially about the apartheid side of things. But nevertheless, Paul Marx had a quote that he always said. And he always said that quote because he got it from St. Augustine. Mm-hmm. Now, St. Augustine was a significant, let me read from the Britannica. If you go from Britannica, they say he was one of the most significant Christian thinkers after St. Paul. He adopted classical thought, the Christian teachings, and created a theological system of lasting influence. He also shaped the practice of biblical exegesis. And that's all we're talking about is he just how you analyze scripture and text. You know, when people go to these seminaries, they come out with all these terms. So here we go. And he helped lay the foundation of many of the medieval. I didn't know if I say that right. Medieval. That's right, medieval and modern Christian thought. What he said was good for the older days, and it was good for the newer days. Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to understand, this fellow was born November 13th in the year 354 AD. 354. He died in 430. And he was a powerful bishop. But his quote that Paul Marx always quoted him as saying, St. Augustine said, pray as though everything depended on God. Mm-hmm. Work as though everything depended on you. And that was adamant. And that's the way Paul Marx operated. Pray like everything depends on God. And that's a powerful statement because that means you totally lean on God. You totally pray. You do things. But then you put feet to your prayers. Mm-hmm. Goes right along with St. Paul said, faith and works, they work together. Now, he wasn't the only one that said that. Martin Luther. Now, this is very interesting because Martin Luther came against the Catholic Church. And he we're talking about somebody born 1,000 years later, 1483, and he died in 1546. He defiled the Catholic Church. He launched what is called a Great Reformation. And then for the Germans, he did, and it is an equally awesome thing. He translated the New Testament into German. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the main figures of the Protestant Reformation. Now, according to Luther, salvation and eternal life was not earned by good works, but they are received as a free gift from God's grace. Yes. That's why folks like John Hunter and others can be saved.
Yes.
By a believer's faith in Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Now, his teachings challenged the authority of the Pope by believing that the Bible is the only source of divinely revealed knowledge. But you know what he's most known for, his quote? Pray like it all depends on God. Then when you're done, go work like it all depends on you. Mm. Here was somebody from two opposite sides of a religious movement. St. Augustine, and still you had Martin Luther. And they were on the same page when it says we need to work like it depends on us. But we got to pray. We got to trust God like it's all on him. Which brings us to where we are. You know how June 21st, the media's reporting, if you were reading the news, and you could read Epoch Times, I'm going to quote for them. They said reports indicate multiple U.S. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers have departed Whitman Air Force Base, Missouri, overnight on June the 20th and June they're headed west. The U.S. officials disclosed to Reuters that the flying wing bombers were headed to the Pacific island of Guam. And, of course, the Times reached out to the Pentagon for verification. The Pentagon referred questions to the White House. And the White House, it said, did not immediately respond. In other words, White House ain't tell them nothing. They just kept quiet about it. Now, later on, the 23rd, we have another headline. U.S. strikes on the Iranian nuclear sites inflicted extremely heavy damage from the Pentagon. In other words, we knew that Israel, once they realized, and I was in a conference call where it was reported that, yes, Iranian now was making nuclear bombs. One thing had them that they had 3, they were working on getting 9. Somebody decided they weren't going to wait to get 9. Somebody said, oh, Israel going to hit now, y'all. Hold on. And Israel did hit. They hit first to try to take down a lot of those nuclear weapons. But they didn't have the bomber that the United States have. Now, after they did that, there's some other stuff that's not reported. I'm going to see if I can. I'm not sure if I hope I brought that news with me. Let me see if I can bring up a count. Because if you remember, Trump was at a G7 conference. Oh, yes, on page 2 over here. I got it right in my notes here. There's a reason Trump left that G6 thing.
G7.
The G7. And one of the problems was, well, before I get to that, let me work into it. I want to tell you why he left at GC. Because by the time the June 23rd thing came around, the United States had hit Iran too. Only they used some bombs that precisely located those main places where they were making the nuclear things, where they, boom, enhanced the, anyway, they hit the nuclear plant so they could not enhance the stuff and turn it into bombs. That showed up on the 23rd. The U.S. strike on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities overnight on June 23 followed a highly intricate plan that entailed more than 125 U.S. aircraft and warships and layers of deception, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said during a Pentagon's briefing. He said preparation of the mission, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, took place over the course of weeks and months. And so we were ready when the President of the United States called. So these things were going on, working behind the scenes. Our military was getting strong. Yes. The U.S. strikes were made a week after Israel had launched surprise attacks against Iran. In other words, Iran mouth about how they were going to blow up them and kill them, how they were going to do them, how they were going to do them. And Israel believed them. And they put a stop to it. In the meantime, what else was going on over here? There was a specialist working for the State Department. And, of course, O'Keefe got a hidden camera and got that person to admit something. And that person is no longer working for the State Department after the investigation. A hidden camera showed that the visa specialist, the speech expressing anti-American sentiment and admitting to helping illegal aliens evade deportation. In other words, one of the main people who was responsible for vetting people to make sure that it's okay for them to come to the United States and giving out these visas and get them to here was somebody who did not even believe in this nation. And they found out about it and he was fired. But they also found out not only was he showing people how to get in, he was showing them how to stay away and how to not get caught. And it was behind a hidden camera with O'Keefe doing his thing. Now, the reason this is so bad, and I mean, this guy even told him, I won't even repeat what he said here, because if you read it, you might get some more hints if you're an illegal or what you need to do. But nevertheless, if you are here legally, y'all, just stay calm, stay cool, be courageous. But anyway, the problem is, Iran, the next thing they reported, Iran sleeper cells in the United States after military base attack. The story around Iran's sleeper cell threat in the U.S. has turned urgent after Iran launched a missile strike on the U.S. military base in Qatar earlier this month. Now, according to multiple reports, and when they say multiple reports, I sure don't remember seeing it in my news thing, Donald Trump was briefed on a credible sleeper cell threats while attending the G7 summit in Italy. A G7 summit in Italy, while attending the G7 summit in Italy. Leading to his certain departure, an early departure from the event. Shortly after leaving, he authorized retaliatory U.S. strikes against Iranian targets. In other words, now, sleeper cell, this is the synopsis of the whole story. There's a growing concern in the U.S. after Donald Trump left that summit, because of the intelligence warning with the possible attacks on the United States soil, on American soil. And following Iran's missile strike America's retaliatory bomb of nuclear thing, officials had learned that sleeper agents inside the U.S. may be activated. And that's why things got tough. You see, here, everybody been talking about, oh, the number of Mexicans coming across. Many of them, and it's not the Mexicans people heard about. Everybody, over 1,000 and so Iranians that came in, military men. Over 700 who they cannot now identify where they are.
Right.
Our custom borders does not know where those 700 went, Iranians. Meanwhile, Chinese are here, thousands of them, and they don't know where those Chinese are. We're talking about military-age men. The sleeper cells are here. Now, the worst part of this is that they are going to do a thing, and it only takes one or two. They've already hit in other countries. Don't have time to go through that one with you. I didn't pull that one out. I knew I was going to have time. They bombed a church. All it took was one person walked in with a bomb, and he killed 22 people and injured 66 while they were in prayer in a church. That's in another country. All it took was one Iranian loaded with nuclear bombs, not nuclear bombs, just regular bombs, with guns and everything, a terrorist. Who knows what kind of terrorist he was? Who knows where he was really from? And all it takes is one of them to walk into a church and do some damage. Now, Jesus says this, Matthew 24, 5-7. Many are going to come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will see many. You will hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And that's crucial to remember. Even though we see what was coming, part of war's thing, according to Jesus, the end is not here yet. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against, there can be famines, pestilence, earthquakes in various places. But Jesus does say something. All these are the beginning of sorrows.
Yes.
So this is where we are. You're going to be delivered up for tribulation. They're going to kill you. You're going to be hated. I mean, he was. And now the thing that scares a lot of people who do know about it is that we're dealing with something here that disciples really did go through. They were killed. They were hated. They were put to death. False prophets up. Jesus said this, because the lawlessness will abound. Lawlessness will abound. Lawlessness will abound. In other words, the riots we're seeing in Los Angeles, this is lawlessness. Burning down on things, and you got news up there talking about, well, it's mostly peaceful. They're lying. It's not mostly peaceful. I don't care if you put a whole clump of dirt into a cup of tea, that tea is not mostly clean. It's dirty now.
Yes.
So it is with what's going on. And Jesus said, lawlessness will abound. The love of many will rest. He said, but he who endures to the end, this is why we got to say, I want you to be wise, be courageous, endure to the end on this one.
Yes.
And the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as witness to all nations, and then the end will come. And folks, we're dealing with a way that the gospel literally can go out through social media, through radio, through TV, around the world. Yes. And we end up with this one, because this is what I want to talk about you today. Is one thing you need to do is work. Jesus told chapter 9, 36-38, his disciples, when he saw the multitudes, he saw all those people, he's moved with compassion for them because they were weary and scattered like sheep with no shepherd. You got to understand, when Jesus saw them, he also saw all the things. He saw the future.
Yes.
He said, the harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest.
Yes.
All the things that are going on, the most important thing Jesus wants you to do is to work. Is to work.
Yes.
Is to work. It's time to get busy, y'all.
Yes.
Don't get scared. Don't be fearful. Let's get to work. Because Jesus Christ saves.
Just Common Sense, a common sense approach to life with Dr. Johnny Hunter. Get involved and embrace common sense conservative principles when you visit learninc.org. LEARNINC, learninc.org. To listen, like, and share, look for Just Common Sense anywhere you listen to podcasts.